Welcome into the Inside Bassmaster Podcast. Kyle, it's 2025. Can I just drop inside off of it? Can we just be the Bassmaster Podcast? That'll roll so much easier for me.
That works for me. We can call it the
Okay.
Bassmaster Podcast from here on out.
We got Brett.
I think people call it anything but the Inside Bassmaster Podcast to begin with, so it
Somebody
shouldn't be.
said, "Are you still doing the Dumb and Dumber podcast?" And I said, "Heck yeah, we are."
Pat Renwick calls it the Bassmaster Insider. I mean, we got every name except for the right name, so we might as well just change it up.
That's perfect. Perfect. We got big news today, and no, it's not Kyle Jesse and his birthday today. Happy birthday, Kyle. How old are you? 26, 27,
I am 29.
29. Man, you're getting so old. You're catching me every day.
I know, getting up there.
Absolutely crazy. You share a birthday with Michael Middleton, one of our producers here in studio, and he turned 45, so you could be him. I mean, that's like really old. But uh happy birthday, man. And when we're shooting this podcast, we're obviously still we're about 2 weeks out from the start of the Elite Series season. We've already had a couple events going. We've had two college events, Harris Chain and Okeechobee. We've had two kayak events at Havasu and Kissimmee Chain, high school, junior, all that stuff as well. And I say your birthday wasn't the biggest announcement today because our expected guest on the podcast today was going to be none other than Chase Anderson, owner, president, CEO, the guy at Bass. I don't know. Is Philip now the CEO? No.
Now,
I've
COO.
Oh, CO. Okay. So Chase is anything and everything Bassmaster related. And he was actually in Knoxville, Tennessee today for the announcement of the 2026 Bassmaster Classic. So we always know the classic announcement for each year is going to be within, a month of the classic, either at the classic, a month after the classic, or just before. This year it is before. The 2026 Bassmaster Classic will head to Knoxville, Tennessee, which, Kyle, a lot of people will take it different ways. Man, we want a new fishery, we want a new body of water. All I know is that it is an interesting body of water with how it could be winter fishing. It could be really high and muddy, a lot of current flow. It could be, deep water fishing, like we said, with winter, or it could be those shallow points off the river as the current flows by, and you can power fish with whatever you want there. We saw a lot of that with John Cox. We've seen Greg Hackney do that. We saw Steve Kennedy doing that. It's not just the way Jeff Gustafson won it. So we will see. It'll be interesting to see how that classic next year goes, what the weather's even like. Because if you think about it, if we're going to the St. Johns River and Lake Okeechobee, the weather that we've had in Florida has been colder than it's ever been for longer stretches, a week or two, and there was snow in northern Florida. It was kind of crazy. Yet the warm up that we're about to have for the St. Johns River is going to make that event probably closer to the spawn than we all thought. We thought maybe it would be more pre-spawn. And so who knows what that weather will throw at the Classic for a calendar year away from now. But
We
Kyle,
can't predict the weather tomorrow, much less a year from now.
exactly. I do the 10-day forecast for the St. John's and look at it. And then you go, a month forecast, and it's like it gets eerily similar those last 2 weeks of the month. And you're like, I think they're just guessing. I think they just copy and pasted some, they just changed it by a degree. Or it really will be that stable. But uh got a lot of ground to cover somewhat on the podcast today. I got a new little setup, man. Let me just take you around. If you I don't even know if I'm supposed to do this, but uh since our open at Clarks Hill that we were live for, we've done some studio renovations. So we're gonna have a new desk over there on that side of the. We're gonna have a new desk on that side of the studio over there, and Screen of Knowledge has now moved, and we've got a garage again. Got
OG.
some I got some bait and tackle, kind of like a vibe of a Bass Pro Shops that you'd have. In fact, the desk that I'm at is the Bass Pro Shops, I guess where we're going to talk about tackle on this desk. So some cool new things coming to the live show, cool new looks. Check out this screen laid into this big, nice wooden box that we can change for different things. There's a couple different logos in there. So shout out to the crew. We actually got some folks uh, redoing some lights in the studio as well. So those first events, that's why we sometimes seems like we complain. Those first events come quick. We haven't even gotten approved to redo studios. So it's like we've got 2 weeks before the next live show. We better do it now. So with next week's Rayburn live coming up quick, studios took a big turn and it looks good. But we've got some new things that also dropped this week. Kyle, tell us about the new game that you kind of teased out last episode that we can now talk about.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. Got the brand new TH Marine Bassmaster Pick'em Challenge. So obviously when you talk about fantasy fishing or fantasy sports in general, let's just call it what it is. The Pick'em style game is super popular. Obviously you see it a lot in the NFL. It has become super popular because it simplifies the game, right? I mean, just with Rapala Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing, Falcon Rods, Drain the Lake, people like you and I love that because it requires a lot of strategy, a lot of research, just a ton of, not a ton, but quite a bit of effort to try to make calculated picks that make sense. Well, the pick'em game that we've got is much more simplified. It's head-to-head matchups, one angler versus the other, seven different matchups per tournament, and you simply just pick which angler you think is going to finish highest. And obviously, super happy to have TH Marine on board with that, and they're going to give away some great prizes for each tournament, along with a fantastic grand prize. So something we're super excited about. I think it's going to create, as Ronnie and I have talked about off the podcast, a lot of different opportunities for content. And the matchups are going to be picked by us, which is super fun because we get to kind of control what the matchups are going to look like. And if you've already looked at it, you know this, but we will definitely have some intriguing matchups. Some of them are based on interesting, tidbits, whether it be like, anglers from that body of water, Battle of the Beards. I mean, just random picks, which not only makes it fun, but, as Ronnie and I have talked about, it makes it challenging because when you look at certain matchups, you're like, I have really no reason to believe that this guy will do better than this guy, which, will make it super fun. And, when the game first got, thrown into an idea, my thought was, man, unless we had a lot of different matchups, like I think it'd be pretty easy to pick until we started making the matchups. And I was like, this is going to be way more difficult than I think people realize. So it's something super exciting. I am thrilled that we've got it launched, and it's been a work in progress for the last, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months. So shout out to everybody here for making that happen. Here in Birmingham, but it's been super fun, and look forward to a great season on the first season of Pick'em.
So I assume that those category matchups will change. Like it won't always be Battle of the Roommates, even though that is one that we could probably do through every event or former champs. We won't have that at, one of our events this year. We're not going to have former champs at the Pascatank and things like that. But Battle of the Tylers, I guess we could do Battle of the Brandons, and we could do two renditions of that. We got four Brandons, so we can pick out a couple of Brandons to do that with, and so it's kind of, I guess, are you thinking of two anglers and creating a category they fit into, or are you thinking of categories and then picking two anglers to display in that? Because there's two different trains of thought there.
Super early on. Obviously, just the first tournament has been decided to this point. So it's been a mixture of both. I think that you look at the anglers and you figure out, like the former champions, John Cruz and Corey Johnston matchup, for instance, and you look at that, and both those guys have had success. Um, that matchup is intriguing just because they've both done exceptionally well there. Rookie of the year versus angler of the year, two guys that had stellar seasons last year. How does that momentum translate into the next season? They'll be based on a lot of different factors. And I'll be honest, the first time I've said this a lot, and this is the first time I'll say it publicly, I suppose. The first time two anglers get in a dispute on the water, you can guarantee they're going to be head to head on the next matchup. So the first time somebody wants to spout out on live at somebody for fishing their area, you can guarantee those two will be facing each other the following tournament. And one thing, Ronnie, you and I have talked about this a little bit, I believe, but one thing we want to do is incorporate a fan vote. So what that would look like would be like on Twitter or X or Instagram stories is do a poll, and we'll give the fans four different matchups, and they can choose which matchup they want to see for the next pick'em tournament. So there's going to be a lot of different factors that go into it, and that gives the fans a say in the votes or in the matchups. Who knows? Some weeks we might use the top two matchups that are selected, and Yeah, it's going to be based on a lot of different factors, and that's to me what excites me the most is the fact that like we're never going to run out of intriguing storylines. It
Well,
could
I
be
think
two.
that you can do one where it's going to be like gotta have a good tournament when you're six,
Yeah,
seven events in and
100%.
you're out of the classic and we're picking between Pollock and Christie. You're like gotta have a
Slump,
good one.
yeah,
Who's gonna
slump
do it?
buster. Like who's
Yeah,
gonna bust a
exactly.
slump, or who, two guys that later in the season that started out slow and are rising back up like a Bob Downey last year,
Hot
obviously mid
hand, yeah.
tournament. And you take two of the hot hand guys, and those guys have to face off
We could
against
do
each
the
other.
hot head category too.
Yeah, I mean, we'd also never run out of choices on that one. But no, I think that there really will be, in all seriousness, a lot of fun matchups and things that'll make it super intriguing and just again, selfishly, I'm just thrilled that we get to make the matchups and you and I and others can discuss and figure out what would be the most intriguing matchups. So that's going to be a ton of fun and super easy, super simple, and really, if you're a fantasy player to begin with, there's no reason not to play it. And then if you don't play fantasy right now, why would you not? I mean, it's so simple now, like simplified down with this one game. All it's going to take is to play that one time, and you'll be hooked on all the other games. Because, I know people give you and I a hard time, about fantasy fishing and this, that, and the other. It's like fantasy fishing or fantasy sports in general are just so much fun. Like you have that much more of a reason to be intrigued with a tournament. Like you'll know exactly what I'm talking about with this. Like if you play fantasy football versus you don't play fantasy football, the
Oh
games
yeah.
against two random
Dude,
teams don't mean
I'll
anything
tell you
unless
this,
you've
Kyle.
got players playing. Like it makes it fun.
Fantasy football, when my season, are the seasons end, before the last week of the regular season, and then the teams bench their players or whatever, and there's no fantasy championships. That ends the week prior. Dude, coaching basketball, watching basketball, and fantasy playoffs ending for football, I haven't watched when I go to my Sunday school, Christmas part or not Christmas part, our Sunday school Super Bowl party, that will be the first snap of the postseason that I've watched. I have watched zero football snaps. Like I have zero rooting interest in this. The referee drama, I have no interest in doing that, watching that. They moved their games from Sundays when they have everybody who normally plays to now we got one on a Saturday, we got one on a Monday, Thursday might have something, and Friday has something, and you're just like, dude, I'm just not interested. And so it's been weird. It's been a weird. Obviously, my favorite team's not in the playoffs, but like, it's still just normally I'm watching it. But when I get home from church on Sunday and they got one game because they ran five on Saturday, I was busy. Sunday is football after church, and when you're messing around with that, we tend to not watch sometimes. So, it's interesting. But yes, the fantasy games will be great, and there's also been some changes. We were talking about this the other day. I actually have been wanting this forever because as the main video creator for the website over the last 7 years, I've been wanting video to do better there. Um, and obviously taking over YouTube, I get to control when things air, how they look. But on the website, it's like I hope that video does well. I hope it lives on the homepage long enough. You guys have created the F3 feature. You've got feature one's the big one. F2 might be the top left. F3 might be the top right. That's now auto playing a video at your choice. And so I actually had Bassmaster.com open on my computer in the meeting Tuesday morning, and it started auto playing. I had to mute my computer because the video was playing. I was like, man, I got to get used to this now that we can have those capabilities.
Yeah, it is super exciting and it's going to open a lot of new windows for us. Not only because, like you said, the way that the site has been over the last handful of years, I don't feel like I'm out of my means to say that, like you mentioned, it's not really perfect by any means for video. Obviously, we have the top video section. We have a great video page that you could just spend hours or days watching videos of Tackle Tip Tuesdays, 1 Minute Anglers, old TV shows, you name it. You'd never run out of things to watch, but as a user experience, it just hasn't been perfect, I would say. And now I cannot give enough credit to Chad Mannering, who is, has spearheaded this whole
He's
project.
mannering the website right now. I
I
mean,
mean,
manning the website.
he has done an excellent job of creating this player and having something that's sustainable. And I don't want to give too much of it away because it's still number one, it's still in the works, and then two, we've yet to deploy it to its entirety. But it's going to be something that you can automatically, start a video and then it'll auto play. More videos, and they'll have like a lineup each day, basically, of videos to watch. And
Well, you could do live. You could have one on a live day instead of
that's
having the
gonna be
main.
that's gonna be something
That'd be
we
great.
incorporate. It's gonna add a lot of new value to videos for the website. And to your credit, I mean, I'm not just saying this boasting up, our team, but like the team at Bass in general, between you, Logan Crumley, Chase Sansom, the entire JM staff. I mean, let's be honest, the amount of great video that's produced that it just hasn't been the most ideal setup for the website now is going to be much easier to consume for the viewers, and I think more people will start to appreciate it. It looks like you're in a disco party.
I,
What
I
is
told
going
you we
on?
were testing some lights today, so if it looks like I'm getting like high beams or red, blue, like it's all good. I'm fine. I'm not interrogated right now, so I'm all good.
That's
Just want you
but that's that's
to
to finish my thought. That's the thing.
because
We're all excited about for
that's
the.
the huge thing. That's why Instagram does well. That's why YouTube does well. Isn't that the content is great? It's that one piece of content takes you to the next one. Either you're trying to flee from it or you want something similar to it. And our website just hasn't had that where you watched a good video and then you got to go on a expedition with a treasure map to go find the next video that you want to watch. This is now going to send it to us. So that's great. That is fantastic. I know that embedding videos in stories has been, key videos that are related to the story has been important lately as well. So that'll be great. Well, let me check this out. We've got
I gotta ask you this. When is this podcast airing? Because there's more news we can even talk about
it'll
depending
be
on when
this
we air this.
from when we're shooting this on your birthday, Wednesday, February 5th. It should air tomorrow, the 6th, Thursday.
Well, depending on what time we release the podcast, I mean, there's some really big news we're going to announce tomorrow. Something that
I don't
we've
even
hinted.
know what it is either, so.
You do. It was shot this morning. You know exactly what it was. We're just playing tiptoe
Oh,
around
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
because
don't worry. It's already been announced, Kyle, whether we wanted it to or not.
well,
So
that's true.
you
That's true.
you can go ahead and
It is.
instruct.
It is
I
being.
got the background when I panned around with the camera. If someone was real slick, they would have seen it, but I can show it again. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll make this announcement tomorrow, Thursday, February 6th. So I guess we'll just go ahead and do this thing. There is going to be a brand new podcast series of podcasts called the T and Z. For everybody that thought Zona was just gone like the wind and just never gonna do anything again,
Left Tommy in the dust, man.
incorrect. Big time incorrect. Tommy and Zona, the voices of Bass, you and I have talked about this a million times. Like those two, that is like the voice of Bass over the last 2 decades more or more. Um, and those voices are not going anywhere. They're going to have a podcast, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't want to get into, all the things they're talking about because frankly, I don't know exactly what they're talking about, and
You
that's going
just
to be
never
the fun
know.
part. I
You just
think
never
those
know.
two, those two for the entire existence of their, working relationship have been so fun to watch, and their back and forth is so fantastic that you put a podcast platform with their just constant goofing around, it's going to be a lot of fun, and that's going to be a big part of the new player and everything we've got on bassmaster.com. It's good, and also, Ryan, it's good for us to have a little support. I mean, there for the first few years of the podcast, we were shooting one about every single week, and it was getting to the point where it's almost too much. But now we're going to have a whole series of podcasts that will support each other, and it's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I asked Tommy, "What's it like now that you're a podcaster?" And he's like, "I don't feel much different. Maybe I feel lesser than I used to. Like it takes a little bit away from who you are. You feel worse about yourself." And he said, "I don't know why people would want to hear from me." And that's just Tommy being humble. And I was like, "Tommy, if you were in a deli, because I see Tommy as a guy who goes to a deli, to get a sandwich. and you're sitting over at a booth and there's someone who's a fishing fan that sees you sitting there, you best believe they're going to go sit in the booth, you know, connected, and be back to back with you so they could hear your conversation because they want to sit at the lunch table with Tommy and just hear what Tommy's talking about. So this will be their little look in to hear what you're talking about. But it will definitely be much more manicured than ours. And I've been ragging on the rest of the crew here, Jay. And I said, we've been doing 100 and something episodes of this podcast, and we got no help. And now another podcast comes up and it's nothing but help. We got a whole crew associated to doing this thing. And when I say whole crew, like 5 people, but man, what we could do with 5 people, Kyle.
I'm
But
not even, I can't
we
even,
don't deserve them or need them, but it's like, dang, man, that's all we needed to do
I
was
was going
have
to say,
just.
I don't even have any hard feelings towards it because I'm genuinely just so happy that those two are doing the podcast, and that's going to be I just can't even imagine how big that's going to be and how much people are going to enjoy it to the point that like I don't really care, man. We can do this thing raw. We
I
can do it
told
just as simplified as possible, and we're still gonna create a good product. So I'm not too worried about it.
I told Tommy he needed to. I said, we don't need TV Tommy. We don't need podcast Tommy. We need commercial break Tommy because
Yes.
I love commercial break Tommy. And one day when I no longer am bound by any oaths, I can maybe talk about how fun Tommy Sanders is in those 2.5 minutes we get for commercial breaks.
People don't realize how funny he is. He
He
is
is, and
incredibly
how
funny.
unfiltered he is. And I said, Tommy, we're not on TV. You can drop as many F bombs on the podcast as you want. Like, just do it.
Well, that's kind of the beauty of it from the way I understand it. And again, I don't want to take away too much of the thunder. I just want people to listen because I know I'm excited to listen. But um
You should be able to watch it next week.
yeah,
They should be able
correct.
to watch it next week on the website.
Correct.
So that'd be good.
So the thing I'm just the most excited about is like they're pretty much not giving them much of a filter at all. Like they're just, talk about what you want to talk about. And I think that there's going to be some interesting conversations and things that, maybe haven't been broached in the past that I think they're just gonna put it on a tee and go for it. So that's what I'm excited for. Like I said, those two, I can only imagine your thoughts on this, but those two mean so much to the sport of bass fishing and
Oh
like
yeah,
my entire
myself,
life of
100%.
watching bass fishing and then starting with JM and everything they meant to my internship, just like you. But to have them venturing into podcasts, which are so popular right now as it is, I genuinely, I'm just speaking as a fan. I could not be any more excited for that and this entire year.
Absolutely. Speaking of this entire year, let's get into it. You said you wanted to talk some bold predictions. I had to correct Chris Decker's story because there was some spelling. The word was spelled correct, but it was the wrong choice of word. And I said, you got to tighten up. You're supposedly a writer, Chris. This was after some Twitter, jabs at each other, X jabs or whatever. But he had a prediction for the 2025 season, for Classic, for all these different things. And so let's talk a little bit about the schedule, Angler of the Year, ROI, comeback Angler of the Year, and a first-time elite winner. Um, we've got the St. Johns River and Lake Okeechobee last 2 weeks of February. Okeechobee ends, the first 2 days of March, so that's how close it is to the end of the month. And then we have the Classic, the 20th through the 22nd of March, roughly, or maybe 21st through the 23rd, something like that. Those 3 days. We then have second week of April, the Pasquotank River, Albemarle Sound event in North Carolina. The last week of April, we'll have Hartwell. Then we've got two in Texas back to back, mid-May for Lake Fork and for the Sabine River. We'll then have a month later, 10 Killer in Oklahoma in June. And then we will end our season with, we'll have like a month and a half, 2 month break, and we'll go to St. Clair and we'll go to Mississippi River for the last two events of the season. So I think there's a week in between there where Leech Lake is. So it'll be a good season, somewhat diverse. You got two Florida fisheries that are spawn or pre-spawn. You've got two Carolina events that will be right around the spawn for sure. One of them's Tidal, and one of them is very familiar. But Hartwell, that time of the year, could definitely be a little bit of shad spawn, herring spawn. All those different things come into play when you get to the latter part of April. If it warms up, you could catch a fish on bed, a
I
fish
think
schooling, or you could catch a fish in shad spawn in the morning, catch something in the herring spawn at some point, and sight fish in the afternoon, whatever it is. That's going to be an interesting one. Those Texas tournaments will be post spawn in May, of course, and then but we've seen Lake Fork surprisingly have all stages of the spawn happening when we get to that late April, mid May. It probably will be more post spawn and early summer, depending on how quick it heats up. Uh, 10 Killer should be a steamy one in mid June in Oklahoma, but I'm excited for that one. The last time we were there, we ended the season in like October, and Carl Jacobson won. We've had some midsummer tournaments there, like the college championship where Cody Huff won with Garrett Enders. And then those last two, St. Clair, early August, Mississippi River, late August. That's those speak for themselves. And so when I look at that schedule, I see two specific tournaments that will be what you'd call a scoper's delight. Like something that would be like, and that's 10 Killer and St. Clair. I would expect those two to be the most dominant that way. But all the other ones have enough where there's some other things you can be doing for sure.
there's no question. I'm sure it'll still get talked about plenty. I don't think that's ever going to go away, but I certainly think that, again, think that you look at the schedule and I think that it's definitely going to lend itself to a lot of different techniques, a lot of, you know, shallow power fishing techniques. Hard to believe that wouldn't be the case at a lot of the venues. And then, like you said, it's definitely diverse in the sense that you've still got a couple tournaments where it still should play. So that part of it is super exciting. But Ronnie, let's get into some bold predictions. I don't know if you have given this much thought. And when I say bold predictions, they're really not that bold. It's just predictions, I suppose. But starting off, Angler of the Year. Who's going to be the 2025 Bassmaster, Progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year? Let's hear it.
The schedule is always in mind. Sometimes you just pick anglers that are hot. Patrick Walters, I don't really know if there's a schedule you're like, that lines up really well for him, unless you have a Hartwell Murray Santee tournament, with Fork in there, like St. John's, and then you're like, okay, it's juiced for Patrick Walters or something. But this schedule, when I look at it and I think about it, oh man, it screams Brandon Lester to me. Like I really like two Florida events where it's hard to be consistent. He's done so well in Florida. Then you think of a title place that's got him. It's not a title place that's just the little ones or there's small Pascatank River, Albemarle, that's got him. So I'd expect that to not be any problem for Brandon Hartwell. He's done well there before. I'd expect it to do the same. He's always great around that spawn time of the year. Post spawn with Fork and Sabine, man, I don't see him slipping too much at all. And then I honestly think where we see him either pull away or jump into the AOY lead is 10 Killer. I 100% think that 10 Killer event will be the event that he jumps into the lead. Man, it just screams East Tennessee a little bit to me, and other ways of fishing he's really apt to do. St. Clair, Mississippi River. I mean, wouldn't it be cool for him to end the season in La Crosse winning AOY instead of coming up second like he did a few years ago to Brandon Polnick, to be able to, because he did everything he needed to do. I think he finished like third or fourth in that event to try to chase down Brandon. So I would say Brandon Lester is my pick. No checking up, no backups. He's my pick.
I like it. So I'm going to do some manifesting here, okay? So bear with me. You know, I am a Texas Rangers fan. You know this. I think everybody
Dallas Mavs fan.
until a few days ago. Deciding to possibly jump ship there. Not the case, but definitely not thrilled about it. Um, Here's the deal. Okay. Bruce Bochy, the manager of the Texas Rangers, has this deal where he wins a World Series, they miss the playoffs, they win the World Series the next year. Okay. Texas Rangers won the World Series in 2023.
You going with Kyle Welcher?
Kyle Welcher is going to win the Angler of the Year this year. And
Okay.
I mean, I'm like, I couldn't be any more confident in this. And I swear on my life, before we started this podcast, I had not made a pick. And then I just started thinking about it. And I was like, Kyle Welcher's my pick. So not only for trying to manifest the every other year thing, uh, but for the same reason you mentioned the schedule. I mean, you look
Technically,
at
he did win Angler of the Year this year. It's just in a different league.
right, man. Good point. That's a good point. Not yeah. It didn't count.
No correlation, but he was
But
fishing good. It just wasn't with us.
if you know if the Frisco Rough Riders win the AA championship, that doesn't count for the Rangers winning the championship.
Whoa.
Um, that was not meant to be a dig.
Whoa, that was a dig.
I swear that was not meant to be a
He threw
dig.
Frisco Rough Riders out there. That's wild.
But point being is Kyle Welcher is suited for this schedule in every way, I feel like. Shallow power fishing. And don't be mistaken. Like he can obviously use his electronics with the best of them. I think it's something that he has dialed in more than he probably like people would lead on. You look at what he did. Suppose that was last year at Fork, fishing the shallow stumps, offshore structure to have a good tournament there. I mean, I look at things like that and I'm like, you can do that a lot of different places. I think we've obviously seen that over the last couple of years be more of a factor. And then you just take that and combine it with his natural instinct. Like, I don't really have to explain that. All I have to do is watch Kyle Welcher in a tournament where he just gets to go, like just put the trolling motor on and go. He's absolutely one of the best at that. And again, you look at the schedule, you look at the every other year thing. I'm just trying to manifest this thing because really I want the Rangers to win the World Series again. And if that means Kyle Welcher needs to win Angler of the Year, then so be it. And I'm still stuck on this dig thing. That wasn't meant to be a dig. I honestly meant no disrespect by that.
I just I was
I'm
just
just
like,
saying that
whoa,
as
what
if
an
there's
analogy. What an analogy there.
I just meant it as if it's a different league and it's still the same organization, but like, whatever. It doesn't.
Yes.
That
Same
came off
same
way.
sport.
That came off way worse than I meant it to. So my apologies there.
We're
But
gonna
yeah,
have you head to head with Fat Cat in the next matchup for TH Marine Pick'em.
yeah, definitely was not my intentions. I hope that was not taken negatively by.
No, no.
If you wouldn't have mentioned it, I wouldn't even have thought about it. But yeah, so let's move on. I think we've talked a good bit about the rookies, obviously the last podcast we shot. But if we had to make a rookie of the year prediction, I
And
feel
that
like
removes
no,
that removes Cody Meyer and Dakota Ebear. So of our class, you've got 7 EQ anglers. You've got Easton, Tucker, Paul, Emil, Andrew, Bo, and Evan, and then you have Blake Caps from the nation. Those are the 8 anglers eligible for Rookie of the Year. Cody Meyer, Dakota Ebear not eligible because they're so rich.
so you want me to go first on this one? That's usually how we
Oh,
do every other thing.
heck yeah. Unless you steal mine. But yeah.
So this is gonna get tricky here.
See, that's
Uh,
hard because we just picked 2 anglers who are not rookies to win Angler of the Year. So we automatically could be messed up there because a rookie seemingly can win both. We know that. Hey, it's right there. So we'll see. So basically who we're picking right now is who's going to finish second or third or fourth to Brandon Lester and Kyle Welcher.
this is tough. When you do things like this, it makes you kind of sit there and think like I'm gonna be
Like
stuck with this no matter what throughout the season. So I better pick
I've
right.
I've got one
And
that I do not expect you to pick. So I'm well prepared to be different.
your
And
angler,
not
your
because
angler is from Georgia.
no, it's not. No, no, no.
You're
You
lying.
thought I was picking a meal, didn't you?
I think I'm gonna pick a meal.
I
I'm
I, I
Georgia.
do not hate that pick at all. I had
So
him in my
here's
mind at first, but I've got another guy that I'm just like, man, shoot, I've touted this angler and I just really think he's going to translate to the elites really well. Not that these others won't, but just somebody's got to win Rookie of the Year.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll probably get a phone call from Bo Browning at some point for
Speaking
not.
of Rookie of the Year, we got a former one right over there, Joey Cifuentes. Joey, come over here, man. What are you doing?
Just hanging out. Thought
Just
I'd see
hanging
the
out.
studio.
We're doing a Bassmaster podcast with Kyle Jesse. What
Hey,
do you want to say to Kyle?
I hope you're doing well. I can't wait for this next season. But besides that, I don't know what you do.
He said his Angler of the Year pick this year was a guy who won Angler of the Year, missed the Classic, and now he's going to come back and win again, and that's Kyle Welcher. But you were right there in that whole season at the top,
Yeah.
and then missed the Classic. Are we going to get a bounce back from you?
That's really why I'm here, because my rookie season, I had such a great year, and I came in here and I toured the studios. I got
Touch
my
Tommy
family
and all that stuff.
and
Yeah.
touched Tommy, and did all that and hung out with the guys. And so I'm trying to duplicate that. So yes, I'm in the hunt, baby.
That's awesome. Well, I actually got a video coming up on YouTube later this week of Joey talking about some essentials to his boat before the season gets started. It's good to see you.
See you too.
And so that should be on the website and YouTube soon. Look at that. I mean, I didn't know that anglers like Bowman enough to come on a whim over here to see Bowman. That's crazy.
I mean, I'm still stuck on the whole "I don't know what you do" thing. I mean, that's about to piss me off. Um, I'll be completely honest here, but no, I mean, it better be a bounce back
That's
year. Just put it that way. Better be a bounce back year.
that's two. I think he made a mistake in a text as well with us or something. So I think he's
Yeah,
just not on your list.
probably so.
No,
Joey,
I think he
Joey
no he
Cifuentes
did
is not a real Arkansan, so it doesn't really matter what he thinks, anyways.
he
So,
didn't tag you on Instagram or something. That's right. We tagged.
that's
There
that's
was
not that's not hard to believe at all. I don't even care about that, but um, yeah, well, whatever. Nothing like being taken down a notch,
Hey,
Joey.
it's understood. I'm sitting here. He would, if I was the other, if I was over there and he came, he would have said the same. Like, what do you do other than run your mouth? So, um, so your
Well,
rookie of the year,
you're
you're
fair.
going to Meal. Yeah,
So
we're going back on rookie of the year.
I'm going to meal,
I like
and
it. I do.
I just think there's one tournament, and I know you and I have talked about this during the season last year, that just gave me a new perspective, right? So you look at somebody like Emil and you think to yourself, like, everybody just wants to assume all these guys are just scopers. Like, that's just it. Like, bottom line, all they do is scope, whatever. I think they're incredibly good at it. You couldn't be from Lake Hart or Lake Lanier, excuse me, and guide on Lake Lanier and not be good with your electronics. Like, that's just like, if you put a list of like top five,
Places to
facing
fish.
sonar lake,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
that's easily one of them. So it's not hard to believe that he's good at that. Like, that's easy. But also, there was a tournament last year. I want to say, was it Leech, where he
Yep.
went up and fished shallow for a good bit
And
and
it
made
wasn't a ba it was a it bailed him out, but he mentioned to me on the phone. He said, "Dude, if it gets a little tough out there on smallmouth, I'm going to go frog and flip." And then he went and did it when he needed it. He needed that, and it helped him, obviously not drop in the standings that tournament. But
100%.
that was a part of a game plan. It wasn't just well, I don't know what else to do. Like he had mentioned that, and we were waiting for it. I said, "You know what? I don't want you to struggle, but I want to see you go do that. So maybe if you catch 20 pounds of smallmouth, you'll still go out there." And he said, "No, I'll if I'm on him that good, I'll stay out there." But he ended up going out there, catching one big one, smallmouth. Then he had nothing for a couple hours. Went up shallow, caught two decent keepers of largemouth. Went back out and then caught like two smallmouth back to back, maybe three cold once, and was done for the day. So it was like, thank goodness he had something to go to midday.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just that's the pick that came to my head. Another one of those that have not really given any thought whatsoever until we started the podcast. But I'm going to meal, and I honestly, and I'm not even just saying this, I really think that if any of the seven won, there wouldn't be any surprise.
Of
Like,
the
I wouldn't.
EQs, yeah,
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't be surprised if any of those guys won it.
yeah.
Like, I wouldn't. Like, I think it'll come down for a lot of them just a few tournaments, like
Well,
which you see a lot with Rookie of the Year. Like, it's going to come down to like a make or break decision that will determine if you win or if you finish second. So, or third. So, I'm going to Mail though. That's what I'm rocking with.
this guy that I'm picking finished on average 12 spots worse than Easton Fothergill, and Easton had such a great season, won two events, but this guy over a 9 event season was only 111 points behind him, and on average that's 12 points per tournament. So that's the difference in somebody getting 10th and 22nd. Like you guys are, you're getting the caliber of finish you need, and that's Andrew Loberg, man. From being from a West Coast background, moving to Gunnersville, we know what that does for anglers. He's lived there for a bit. It translated to the Opens this year in his first attempt. I know how good of a fisherman he is, so I wasn't shocked to see his performance this past season in the Opens. Thought it was fantastic. Thought it lined up, and I think that there's enough diversity. I know there's some fans. There's one dude on YouTube, Kyle, who just hates the word diversity. Like anytime we say it, like versatility or diversity, like he just hates it. So I'm gonna get a comment. He's gonna be watching this podcast.
I'm sure he'll comment on this video.
That but there's enough diverse fisheries in California that Loberg grew up fishing, whether tidal, delta type fisheries, deeper Shasta, Folsom type fisheries, Clear Lakes of the world, those types of lakes that big bass he's accustomed to, whether they're out deep off a point or up flipping some toolies, as they call them. That I think that, Florida's fine for him. Who knows, though? People have consistency problems in Florida, but that I don't expect Florida to be some crazy, trip up. There's about six of the rookies I expect to do very well at Hartwell. They either call it their home lake or their favorite lake, and so I would expect Hartwell to be a wash in terms of rookie of the year moves. I think they're all going to do pretty well there, and maybe all of them make the cut. And I do think we see. I'm not going to say we're going to have a big drop off. It's hard to imagine all nine first year guys from the opens, including Cody Meyer and Dakota Ebert,
Right.
those nine that all of them make the classic. Like that's just at a certain point you're going to have so many good rookie classes that your whole elite series is full of the best veterans and some really good rookies that are fishing well that something's got to give and you're going to have a 45th place AOI finish and not make the class something. So I don't know if this is the year or not, but I know it's going to be. When you got 42 or 43 slots to fill for the Classic from the Elite Series off the bat, you run out and you still got 25 guys you think you could put there easily, so something's going to have to give. But I think Andrew Loberg gets it done. I think it's going to be a really tight contest. I think he gets top 10 in AOY, and I think he really shows out this year, and a lot of people learn about him for sure.
I dig it. That's a great pick and could easily be the case. And like I said, I mean, you just look at the entire class of rookies, like true rookies, and it was like I don't think any of them would surprise you. So
Yeah.
certainly, I could certainly see that being one, like I mentioned, that comes down to the wire and should be an interesting one to follow. Ronnie, I gotta ask you this, okay? Let's do something a little different here. How about comeback angler of the year? You know, somebody that missed the classic last year, didn't have a good year. Let's say 60th or lower in
Okay, I was
angler,
gonna say, yeah.
60th or lower in angler of the year. Who do you think is going to be the comeback angler of the year? This is an award that we're just making up. So it can be whoever you think.
Yeah, I was worried because, comeback player of the year in other sports is like something bad happened to you, an injury, you underperformed, something like that. And I was like, does missing the classic just in general mean you underperformed? You could finish 45th in the AOI and you beat 60 people and did you
Sure.
underperform? So yes, I like that 60 mark because you were in the bottom 44 of the field, 59 beat you. And so you were below 50% and you missed the classic. You probably didn't win an event. So you missed all your goals. So here's a comeback attempt. 60 or worse in AOI. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom almost. I got to go with the way the schedule is. Obviously hinges on that um, greatly, but I think Scott Martin has a comeback year. There are some guys that are below 80th in points that are shocks, but that I don't think that'll make the classic, you know, going further in their career. I think that they're like, what I'm saying? Like, so people will see a lot of big names and think, come back, come back, come back. But there's that fine line in fishing where all of a sudden you just aren't making classics every year. And it's more so like not fluky when you make a classic, but you're no longer on the list of shoe-ins to make the classic. And so if the comeback angler of the year means they're going to go from outside the classic below 60th to now probably above 60th or classic bound, I'm going to go Scott Martin with two in Florida. Um, Obviously, got to make the classic, so he'll have those first three events. Gravy, too close to home, and then the classic, and then you've got the South Carolina events around the spawn. Think he's a-okay there. I don't know what the deal was last year with him, and he could not get any kind of consistency. I think that returns this year.
Yeah, it
He's
was so
done
weird.
well in that. He's done well in that Northwest Arkansas area, so I expect East Oklahoma to be fine for him. Obviously, it's not during the spawn; it's during the summer. But like, I just, I just feel like he's going to have a decent season. I think he's going to make the points. I think he's going to have. I'll say this: a decent season. I actually think he'll have his best season he's had on the Elite Series because I think up to this point he's finished 38th, maybe is his highest AOI finish. I want to say, let me just look at that real quick. Um, if you want to say anything, you can, but
No,
I
and I was
believe
gonna what I was gonna mention about Scott, which was so bizarre last year, is you go first open of the season,
he won the
blows it,
points race for
break,
the
breaks
Southern
records. Well,
Division.
that's what I was gonna say, and didn't stop there. Like he fished great the next two tournaments, almost won at Santee, and finished the season strong. And so it's not like I mean, this is an obvious thing to say, but it's not like the ability's not there. Like he fished super well in the one series of the Opens, which is still incredibly difficult to do. So it was just a very odd thing to see him struggle in the Elite Series as much as he did last year, just based on how well he fished in the Opens. So yeah,
Yeah, so his 4 years on the elites, this is now going into year five. His 4 years, he finished 42nd in points, 38th in points, 44th in points, and then 92nd in points. I expect 38th or better from him this year. So we'll see about that. But yeah, he got a little scared at the end of the year when it comes to requalification. I'll say that because he had three, you know, right there, good years, made the classic, barely missed the classic. But then when you have one that's 92nd, that skews your average big time. And you go from having high 30s, like 39th, 40th average to all of a sudden this is a quarter year average and it's a 92nd. It dropped him down a lot farther in the average than people thought it probably would. Now he has a drop year with this being his fifth season. So another good year, and he will bring his average of his career back up to the 30s, because that 92nd will drop off. So comeback
right.
angler doesn't mean angler of the year, but winning the comeback award, Scott Martin.
I like it. I like that one a lot. So I'm gonna go not as drastic of a comeback as far as like how far down, in the AOY standings a year ago, but I'm gonna go with Jason Christie. So just barely meets the threshold of sub 60. But I want to share a story that happened last year that kind of just I don't know, ever since it's happened, I've just been thinking like it's gonna be a big year for Jason Christie. Not only because he's Jason freaking Christie and he's a stud, and the style that he fishes and excels at a lot, although he is very good with his electronics, is the style that the majority of this season kind of presents, at least through my eyes. But the story is last year, I believe it was at Smith Lake. I don't want to say for sure, but I think it was Smith or one of the later tournaments of the year. He was shooting some custom content, like some specific content for some new product or whatever it was, with Craig Lamb. And he comes to the media trailer and we're all just chilling in there and we're talking with him. And he said something that has stuck with me ever since. He said, I needed this. Like I needed this year to happen to like propel like the rest of his career because he's obviously had so much success for so long that it's like, in his eyes, at least, like, I don't want to speak for him, but the way he said that was like, I needed kind of a kick in the butt to get back going. And ever since he said that, and then you look at the schedule, everything combined just mean like to me just looks like Jason Christie's about to come back with vengeance. So I'm going Jason Christie comeback angler of the year, the award that we just made up 30 seconds ago.
I'll add that. I'll add to your Christy Smith Lake deal because when I went and shot his boat tour with him, I still got to get you those photos and that deal for the gallery. That's my fault. And thank you for reminding
People,
myself. That's
people are
perfect.
wanting to see. Well, people are
Yeah,
wanting to see that.
exactly. Um, so I was talking to him and he said that he on day two at Smith, he had a decent day one or whatever. That day two at Smith, his marshal gets in the boat, or ambassador as we're now calling him. He gets in the boat and it's the guy he was with when he caught a 9 pounder at Lay Lake in 2023. So the year before, he catches a 9 pounder at Lay Lake, wins Big Bass of the season, and his marshal gets in the boat. He's like, "What's up, man?" And he's like, "What are you doing today?" And he's like, "I was thinking about throwing a fairy wand and jig head minnow, scoping them." And but now that you're in the boat, I gotta feel like I should go for it. Like I feel like there's some ambassadors, Kyle, that just they get in the boat and you're like, this guy's got good vibes, good mojo. He's gonna help me fish better today somehow. And so he's like, I'm gonna go throw a top water and throw a bigger bait, go for it up shallow a little bit more today. And so Jason said he did. He lost like four big ones, and he's like, it was just that kind of day. But I got the bites that I needed and wanted. They just didn't get in the boat. And so he I don't know if his ambassador was like, maybe you should have went scoping, for your 10 pounds today. I don't know if that conversation was had, but I know that he had that feeling he should go for it, and that was probably the day of the season that put him on the outside of the classic looking in as we headed north. Like you have a good event there, you're in the classic, it's a different vibe than going up north, outside the cut.
Yeah, no question. I think that I don't know. Jason Christie's just gonna have a big year. I just feel it. Like ever since then, I've just been holding on to that story and that thought because I'm like, Jason Christie's he's gonna have a big time year. You can't even say breakthrough year because that doesn't make sense for a guy that's as accomplished as he is. But yeah, I don't know. I got a good feeling about Jason having a big year in 25. What else do we got to predict?
First time elite winner this year.
Hmm. Mm-mm-mm.
You get to go first on that one, maybe. I'm looking up my Drain the Lake for the season that I took a photo of yesterday to see who I've put on my Drain the Lake all year for each event, so that because when you're writing down 80 anglers over 10 events, you think of, man, this guy, I think he could win this event. So to be accurate, I'm looking at that list as we kind of go through it, but um
Here's my pick, okay? And I'm totally stealing one here from Christopher Decker because the same story that you referenced earlier in the podcast, his elite predictions for the season. I think John Cox is gonna win an event this year. And I could probably just say that every single year because eventually he's gonna win one. And then I'll just look right like I've been, just
does
made
he
a
win it in Florida though?
I don't know.
He's gonna
Something
win 10
tells me
killers somehow.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I would say that I think something tells me, you know what? You're not going to guess this one either, probably. He's going to win Hartwell.
Oh no, I could see that. Yeah.
He's going to
He's
figure out
done
a
he's
way.
done so well at Hartwell before, yeah.
No doubt. He's had an incredible amount of success. I still think, and maybe this is just wishful thinking because I hope that tournament is eerily similar to the one that Brandon Cobb won a few years ago. Not, obviously it's later in the year, but I just hope there's enough fish stay shallow to where you see some more like Stetson Blaylock popper catches or, Blaylock with a frog or just fishing shallow for, the late spawners or whatever it may
Oh, for
be.
sure. There's so
I
many
just,
fish in Hartwell that time of
yeah,
the year up shallow, yeah.
I just think that there's going to be a great shallow bite to be had, and I'm just guessing he's probably going to have a lot of that to himself. I'm not saying nobody else is going to do that. I'm sure there'll be a lot of guys that fish shallow and choose to just based on the time of the year and accessibility to do that. But I got John Cox winning Hartwell if we had to be super specific. But I think John Cox wins one this year. I don't know which one it's going to be for sure, but I'll say Hartwell for now.
I'll throw two names out there that I wrote down um to get their first wins. Well, one of these two, like I think that they could get their first win at this lake or this lake. I think yeah, I'll do that. I think Canterbury at Pascatank. Pascatank River, Scott Canterbury. I think it's going to be similar to Winyah Bay, but just bigger fish, throughout. Um, and the other one would be Jake Whitaker at Mississippi River.
I dig
Man,
it.
you want to say Hartwell because Jake knows Hartwell so well. You want to say St. John's because he's had such a good record there. It's harder. I mean, it's harder to win doing what he likes to do at those bodies of water. But at the Mississippi River, you can win doing what he likes to do. And so I see that. I see Canterbury doing well. I think the Pascatank in general will be a first time winner. Um,
Could see that.
whether it's, I think, first time elite winner. We need to preface that. We need to preface
Yeah,
first time
right.
elite winner. Um, I think Randy Howe could win the Pascatank. And I don't think he's won an elite. I think he's only won the Classic. He's won an Open. Um, I don't think he's won an elite.
It's a good one to win if you had to pick one that wasn't an elite. It seems like a pretty solid one to win.
Yeah, the
Uh,
first time we've been there since 1981.
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm
I
super
just gave
intrigued.
away a couple drain the lake picks, so y'all better pay me $5 for that.
I'm just super interested in that tournament in general. Like, I mean, I think I speak for most everybody.
I
Like,
should have fished it
time
more,
we
man. It was 40 minutes from my school, but I'd always go west. I'd always go to Raleigh or Charlotte, just to fish lakes and tournaments. But I should have went up there more.
well, yeah. There's always next time. Just next time you end up back in North Carolina.
If I'm in a boat that far east and I have the choice, I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Who knows? Maybe this event will be so crazy great that we'll do it. Um, let's do this. We'll talk St. John's more with our picks, but since you debuted the new game, let's go on the game right now and make our TH Marine Pick'em
Let's do it.
challenge. Uh, so you threw my name in there on helping with categories, but for this one I had no help doing it. I was of no help. So
That's why the picks are so good. That's why the matchups are so
yeah,
good
exactly.
the first time
So
around.
you quickly give me the reasoning, and then we'll both fire from the hip. We don't need explanation because it's just pick them. It's just do it. But we can explain in the next one that's specifically about the Florida swing coming up. So um, tell me a little bit about why you picked them, what maybe categories got cut, or unless you guys got to 7 and then we're good.
Yeah, we came up with the first rendition and we thought, you know what, this is so dang good that we're just keeping it. I don't think we even threw out the any potential ideas. I wanted to do the fan vote for the first one, but we couldn't do that without giving away
A whole game.
the entire game. So that was the only thing I'd say we culled. Also, it's
Hey,
worth
you guys, here's a poll. Pick these guys, but you don't know why you're picking them,
yeah,
and
you
just
have
just
no
pick them.
earthly no earthly idea. Um, So another thing we ought to add, I never even mentioned this, but the new homepage of the fantasy site,
Oh,
uh,
dude, it's
we talk
slick.
about user experience a lot. I mean, you go to the homepage and it's got all three of the games, big blocks, where you pick them, go back, to the game's home when you want to go back. It
The font lights up a little bit when you hover. Like, dang,
glows. I mean, it's
man,
amazing.
we're just welcome
Again,
to
I'm
2025.
I'm partial, but I do think that is a cool change. So let's get into it. 7 matchups. Matchup number 1, reigning angler of the year versus reigning rookie of the year. I'm
Chris
going
Johnston. Okay,
Chris Johnston, 100%. And
we're
uh,
aligned there. Okay,
yeah, I think Chris Johnston obviously is kind of a no-brainer in the sense that he's just had so much
I don't
success.
need an explainer. We'll explain next
Okay,
time. We're just gonna pick and go. Okay.
all right, relax, relax. Matchup number 2, Florida Showdown. John Cox versus Drew Benton.
One, two,
Three,
three.
two, one. John
Drew
Cox.
Benton. Oh, okay, we're different there.
All right, matchup number 3. This is a real serious one. All right,
Battle of
battle
our
of,
beards.
battle of the beards. Okay, Jacob Fouts, Robert G.
One,
Three,
two,
two,
three.
one.
Jacob Fouts.
I'm going Robert G on that.
Okay, we're different on that one too.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, we'll get into I guess more of it next time. So Ronnie says. So there might not be a next time if he doesn't lose his attitude.
Easy. I'll bring Joey
Matchup
down here one more time. Don't you worry.
matchup number 4, international showdown. Taku Itu versus Carl Jocumsen. One, two, three. Taku Itu.
Carl. Wow, we're different
We're
on that one too.
so off on these. So matchup
No,
number
one of
5.
us is off on these.
Yeah,
One.
we'll see about that. Matchup number 5, Battle of the Roommates, which you could do for a lot of different guys, but this time around we got Patrick Walters versus Justin Hamner. One, two, three. Patrick
Patrick
Walters.
Walters. Yeah, we're back.
Now we're back on the agreeing
I
train
bet
here.
you we agree on the last two as well.
All right, we'll see. Matchup number 6, former St. John's champions, Corey Johnston versus John Cruz. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Corey
John,
Johnston.
see,
Oh,
see? You're not we're not on the same page
well,
here.
maybe you're opposite on this next one too. Then
All right, matchup number 7, the last matchup of the first tournament of the year. We've got Battle of the Tylers, Tyler Rivette versus Tyler Williams. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Tyler
Rivette.
Rivette. All right.
Okay. So we align on Rivette, Walters, and Chris Johnston,
Yeah, I
and we
mean
got 4
that's
different. That's
vastly different on this.
I mean,
Which
we have
just
the chance to
proves
tie, though. We have a perfect chance to tie because if we're correct on our 3 or whatever those are, we get the same result. And then of the 4 different ones, it could be two, and two. So
we're yeah, I mean, it's that just kind of proves the point right there, though. I mean, we disagreed on a lot of the matchups to the point we made earlier about like I think it's going to be much more difficult to get all seven right than people realize. And maybe I'll be proven wrong by that, but I think it will be harder to pick the right matchup or the right angler more often than not. So something to certainly look forward to. Definitely go sign up, play this year, play all the games. Like I said, they're all so fun. But the pickup matchup is going to be a fun new addition to the lineup, and I'm super jacked about it, dude. I'll be honest, I'm pumped.
Awesome. Me too. Yeah, I went and made my picks. I actually have all my rosters set, so you'll have to wait till the next podcast and we will talk St. John's River. From the looks of it, man, after being so cold, it's gotten so warm there. It's in the 80s all week for the next 7 days. And then after that, I think it's like mid 40s to mid 70s. Like I think it looks pretty stable. So that's why I think I set my drain the lake team, which I can still change it because it's before the season, but I have mapped out the whole thing, so that's all locked in. Because I like to pick it at the beginning of the year and not change anything unless a guy is no longer fishing the season. I'll
That's
swap
what
him
you
out.
say. That's what you say, but we have no real proof to prove that you
I
actually.
have papers scribbled on all over the office.
I've got paper scribbled on all over the place too, but that doesn't mean it's
I
got
don't
my
even know what you
like
do,
the
man.
entire season. My goodness gracious. Um,
Well, Kyle, at some point we'll have Chase Anderson on, but until then,
that will happen.
we will sign off, and I'm gonna drink some water. And yeah, we will see you in the next episode of the podcast.